This hearing, the thrust is the impact of al-Qaeda after the killing of Osama bin Laden. There was a debate going on as to where he was located. Was he in the cave? Was he operational? Was he just a figurehead? Most people thought he was more of an inspirational figurehead. That, from what I've seen, that debate may be changing somewhat. There were 27 terror plots over the last 2 years. And I think my first question is, of those 27, how many of those do you believe may have been inspired by those like Awlaki, who inspired Major Hassan just north of my district at Fort Hood, and other franchise operations versus the bin Laden operation? We know with the Predator drones that the command and control structure was greatly decentralized and damaged. So with that, to me, that goes to the core of the question. If we analyze the last 2-year terror plots, how many of those do you believe were actually inspired or motivated by Osama bin Laden?
I would just say this. I work as a consultant on behalf of the FBI, and I evaluate evidence, and I serve as an expert witness in terrorism trials here in the U.S. I have yet to see a single homegrown terrorism case in the U.S. that did not include at least some material by Anwar al-Awlaki. His recordings pop up in basically every single homegrown terrorism case that is litigated by the Department of Justice in this country, and frankly, it appears in basically every single case outside of this country as well. That doesn't mean that bin Laden isn't influential either. His materials show up too. The difference between bin Laden and al-Awlaki is that al-Awlaki may not have military credentials, but he speaks fluent English, he's extremely charismatic, he's a good speaker, and he has religious credentials, which I guess take the place of the military ones. He won't ever replace bin Laden, but he's a tremendously influential figure. And there's absolutely no doubt that he continues to radicalize people, and people are, right now, at this very moment, are being arrested in the United States with connections to al-Awlaki, have tried reaching out to al-Awlaki. Very dangerous people.
And most of these were homegrown radicalization cases inspired by al-Awlaki. Does anybody else on the panel have any comments on that?
You know, in the U.S. military, there's a doctrine called commander's intent, which means that General Petraeus doesn't have to tell, a soldier in Kandahar what to do. And bin Laden was in charge of commander's intent. So al-Awlaki is, the reason he's important in these cases is because he speaks in English. I mean, it's that simple. If he was speaking in Arabic, he wouldn't be that important. It's not that he's a significant religious figure, or as Mr. Coleman said, a significant military figure. It's that he's communicating in colloquial English. Awlaki is no Osama bin Laden. He can't change the strategic intent of al-Qaeda. And at the end of the day, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is a branch of al-Qaeda Central, operating, to fulfill bin Laden's strategic guidance. If a new leader of al-Qaeda came along and said, we're not going to attack the United States anymore, al-Awlaki would still be out there, and he may take a different view. But at the end of the day, al-Awlaki is not in charge of this movement. He's a not insignificant leader of a branch of the larger mothership.
And I agree with that assessment. I've always said that the death of bin Laden was marked the beginning of the end, because we couldn't truly win the war on terror till we killed bin Laden. And so that's why I believe that this is so significant.
Mr. McCaul, if I may
say
so, I don't have a detailed analysis of the 27 that you mentioned, but my answer to the question of how many were inspired by Osama bin Laden would be all of them. He was a symbolic figure. He was an icon. And he had enormous influence here. And I can't imagine any of these terrorists striking without paying some homage and allegiance to him. This man was extraordinarily charismatic. Sitting in the 9/11 Commission listening to testimony, I kept asking myself, how in the world could a man persuade 19 young men to go to their deaths? Now, you talk about persuasive powers. That is persuasive power. I know it's a different environment, a different religion, and all the rest of it, but the instinct for self-preservation is pretty strong. He persuaded 19 people to kill themselves. That's the kind of authority and charisma he had, in a very evil way, of course. He inspired all of them.